everybody to this special city council meeting on Monday, March 31st. It is 3 o'clock. I will call this special city council meeting to order. So the purpose of today's meeting is to do possibly a second reading of the first revised ordinance that we went through. And also in front of you today is a second new proposal of said ordinance that we should go through.
With changes.
With changes. So I'm going to make a motion that we stop the first reading of the first ordinance and take a look at this.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Are the changes substantial enough that we?
Yes.
Okay.
And the changes are in here. Not saying that we won't go back. If we don't like the changes, we'll go back and we'll do a second reading. But this is just simply to clear the air of what's going on. So discussion, Robin, did you have one thing? Were you gonna?
I don't know if the terms are in here yet. I will.
Okay, I just didn't know if, I saw you were going for the mic. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, ayes have it. Okay, so in front of you on last Friday, I had met with a few developers and a few realtors, with Ms. Farter as well. We had just listened to hear some of their concerns after that first reading. Listening to some of their concerns, I had met with Paul and met with Cheryl on Wednesday just to see if those possible changes that we had talked about Friday would constitute as a big enough change to be a second reading or a first reading. We had figured out that most of their concerns were already addressed within the ordinance, but there were some more changes to the ordinance that constituted it to be a first reading. So that's where we are at today. So let's go through from the beginning. The mixed use, that is not changed. That definition is still in red. That was from the original reading. As we flip to page 4 of the land use tables, are you looking for a packet? I think Shar has an extra. As we flipped through and as we had discussed on Friday, I know the city council, there was a 4-to-1 vote to begin with that any pole barn in limited commercial or in mixed use, it was a 4-to-1 that they had wanted a CU, conditional use permit with that. The builders, and upon further discussion, I had seen their point of if we can come up with a good performance standard, why should we be putting conditional uses on every single pole barn application that comes in a commercial, or sorry, in a light industrial or in a mixed use district? Because when I look at it, even though they're going to go one by one with a conditional use, not all the conditional uses are going to be the same, if that makes sense. You know, so to me, I don't really see the fairness in that, but if anyone else has a discussion topic on that, please feel free to jump in.
Can you elaborate on your thinking on that?
Yeah, so a CU, if they're going to put a conditional use, what conditional use is going to be slapped on a pole barn? I have yet to hear that answer. Mr. Fuse, if you have an answer to that, you're more than welcome to approach the podium as the planning and zoning chair.
Do I have to
You're just planning and zoning chair,
address
David
myself?
Fuse.
Yeah, David Foos, 11820 Harbor Lane. Yeah, so on the issue of conditional use there, so as it relates to the building and the architectural standards, we've done a lot to talk about building materials, windows, overhangs, roof pitch, etc. The one thing that conditional use allows that a performance standard won't is what if there are some considerations unique to that particular parcel that relate to what screening might be needed between that parcel and the next. It's really hard to put that in a performance standard. Yep. And that is why I'm suggesting that conditional use be what is covered there, so that anything essentially outside the normal parts of the building can be considered, discussed, and agreed upon. I would like to say that this is something we've done in the past. It's been consistent so that one applicant comes and gets that, and another one comes, they also get that. Whereas if we do a performance standard and they come to the counter and they say, I'd like to do this, and Paul says, yeah, it's okay for this particular situation, but then somebody else comes in the next week or the next month and says, well, I'd like to do something similar, and Paul has reservations as it relates to something like, screening or noise or something, and says, no, we're not going to allow that, then what you have is an inconsistency with the way people are treated. Yeah. So I'm saying, look, have people come before us, we're reasonable, we'll try and be attention to time, and you allow some back and forth, and it really takes some of the yay or nay or the either argument or disagreement away from Paul and the counter, comes before us, and we can reach an agreement. And that's most of the time what we've done. We're not looking to slow progress down or impede people's ability to do things. So that's the reasoning for asking for leaving the CU in the land use table for that designation. And that is the most similar to the other, light industrial or light commercial as well. The other point I would like to make is that if you allow it to be willy-nilly or open, there's no going back. It's a way for us to at least see how it works, and if performance standards are something, we see some trends, we can say, okay, these are things we can put in there so that it can be faster, easier, whatever in the future. So I'm just asking for some consideration for the sake of consistency and review. And then finally, if somebody does something with a performance standard and it's not what we like, we have no ability to say, wait, time out. Whereas if you have a conditional use permit, you can say, look, that's not consistent with what we agreed to. The conditional use permit can be rescinded or taken away until whatever it is that was done that might be different than what it should be can be rectified. So that's the rationale for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuse. I hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, Paul.
These are potential conditions that the planning commission is supplied with for conditional use.
While he's handing that out, I just want to, Jerry's car. Oh, Dave has it. I just want to remind council, these are simply pole barns in 2 districts. I could understand if it was something big, but that is just my point of view on it. So some of these conditions could be work with staff to implement and expand the submitted stormwater plan to include water diversion and stabilize the structure. That's something they already have to do. The applicant shall implement a stormwater plan so that the stormwater from the structure shall be diverted into water retention areas, allowing the water to infiltrate. That's all part of their DRT, you guys. They have to do this before they even come in. Work with staff to implement a temporary erosion sediment control plan before a permit is used during and after construction. You guys can entertain yourselves if you would like to read through these. But I believe a majority of this stuff is something that is already required.
I just had a question for Mr. Fuchs. Number one was, I'm pretty sure screening has been pretty elaborately.
Well, that's what I was gonna piggyback on,
Yeah.
Sandy, is when we're
And
being.
and also I had another question about, also regarding the subject of noise. I'm not sure how that would be an issue in these particular areas.
Can I piggyback on that? In this ordinance right in front of us, and from the beginning, we have a very robust landscaping, screening, and lighting standard plan already that I don't think a CU would really be able to bolster anymore. I mean, what really comes down to it is if we have this in our ordinance, we really need P&Z to follow and ensure that screening is properly being done. I don't think a conditional use is going to strengthen that anymore myself, but go ahead, Mr. Fuse.
Well, I guess what it comes down to is do you think that you have accounted for all possibilities in a proposal, or might there be something that isn't? And I'm making the point that we may not have anticipated everything, and this allows us to make sure that we are complete.
What possible future things have we maybe not thought of? I'm not trying to sound like a smart you-know-what,
Right.
but when I come to this, I'm thinking these are just personal storage buildings. If they want to have an office or something or run a little business office out of it, the council has said they're fine with that. And we're not allowing long-term living, so I just don't know what else could possibly, could come up of what you guys are wanting to see you for to manage.
I guess, could I answer that?
Go ahead.
I mean, planning and zoning, we have to look at the bigger picture. So this is going to go in the mixed-use district. So the CU is going to be on storage buildings, but they're going to be in a district in which the developers can still do pretty much anything they want in the limited commercial district. And so it's assumed that they're going to put in a bunch of personal storage buildings, but one could put in a go-kart track. And then if a go-kart track goes in, and then we all of a sudden have personal storage buildings around, we might want to look at those individually because they're now next to a go-kart track. Now, that's an extreme, but we have to look at it as a district as a whole, not just each individual parcel.
Let's recall a conversation that you and I have had numerous times. And I had this conversation with the developers, and we went through the whole plan, the whole land table, and we had changed of what we had thought a mixed-use district was going to be. And I said that I would hold that, and I would let the Planning and Zoning Commission go through that. And you told me that would be done in a timely manner. So it's not like go-kart tracks or mining pits or an asphalt plant is going to go in tomorrow.
Correct.
I want to remind council that and make that known. It's not like we're going to have a go-kart track in a mixed-use district in 2 days.
No, but I
I've
guess
said
my
my
point being is if there's not a market for personal storage in a year, and they don't want to be handcuffed, and they now want to change their mind on what they want to do on their land, they should be given the right to pick something else on our land use table and do that. And then now we have to look at it as a mixed-use district, not just looking at personal storage buildings.
So according to this land table, using the example go-kart track, it's blank here. Does that mean that's not permitted at all, or?
And maybe I used the wrong example of go-kart track, but
So-
my point being is, let's say there is something that in the mixed-use district that they can use. It's just one argument or one thing to think about is we got to look at it from a holistic standpoint, not just an individual parcel.
Go ahead.
So I look at this, and I know that we discussed this, well, planning and zoning discussed this, that this mixed-use table needed to be looked at further in depth and, you know, gone through sort of line by line in a little bit more detail. If I look at the number of things that require just a permit, it's astonishing to me where storage buildings falls in realm to some of those. You could put a gas station, you could put a funeral home, you can put a daycare facility, you can put a car wash, you can put a bowling alley, you can put a breeding ground for animals. You know, I mean, there's so many things you can put in here that are so much more elaborate and extravagant than a simple storage building that, and maybe that needs to be looked at. But the point being today, you know, after looking at all of our other standards that are required, architectural standards, there's 14 things that they have to follow in terms of how they, you know, how they use it. And
Go ahead, sorry.
we go on with the screening part of it, that's all covered in here. So if you look at this in detail, I mean, to me, CU seems a little bit over the top just for the storage building.
Jamie, can I jump in behind you on that? So if I were to go to my original document here of what I had went through, screening through the mixed use, which none of you guys have, if we look at, like Paul had said, a go-kart track, I just want to remind council, we created this mixed use district to strictly get these pole barns and these developers built, and that I think has always been our goal. is all we were thinking was personal storage. If you look through on page 5, I don't know what it is on yours because this packet is different. Jamie had already said it. Breeding and boarding of animals, a CU. Bowling lanes was a permitted standard. A bed and breakfast was a permitted standard under the mixed use. A bank was a permitted standard. That none of those institutions make sense in this district. I had gone through this and scratched and was going to bring a recommendation to the council, but I was told that I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
That it had to go through planning and zoning, and I was going too fast and whatever. But now that it's being brought up time and time again, let's remember, council, what we have created this district to be used for.
Right.
Nothing about a go-kart track, nothing about a lumber yard, nothing about liquor sales or a private club in a lodge.
Or bowling alley.
Or a bowling alley. Let's just stay with what we have decided that we want this district to be. Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Well, and me and you had this conversation already. I mean, and I'm speaking for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's ultimate goal was to still try to keep some of the business district true to its nature. And I know we're changing districts, but I know when we first brought the personal storage district to you guys, it was denied, or
Yep.
not recommended. And now, and now we're kind of back to, do we want to just have a personal storage district because that's what you guys want it to be? But I know at the time, the big problem with a personal storage district was it was going to limit the developers on what they can and cannot build. It would just limit them to personal storage. And so
Yes.
Planning Commission was, hey, let's keep it as much of a business district as we can, with the exception of allowing personal storage. So we either got to look at it as a district that allows businesses and personal storage and just keep that in mind, or let's make it a personal storage district.
Well,
There's a distorted definition of personal storage between what Planning Commission wants and between what council wants. Yes, I understand that personal storage is somewhere where you drop your stuff, and that's what you would think of at a different city, but in Cross Lake and other cities up north who have pole barns and whatnot, I think it's pretty unique. That doesn't mean that you can go through and strengthen and tighten up what you allow in a land use table in mixed use if you allow it to happen in a different district. If you were to allow something to happen in a different district, you could always put it in industrial just because a city has to, by law, statutorily, allow for some sort of business, and it has to be in your land map. It doesn't need to be in every single land table.
but, okay, if it's.
Go ahead.
If it's mixed use and this is a new type of designation.
Yep.
For a zone, then why don't we just make it CU for most of these things? I mean, like for a bowling alley because that's not the intention of the mixed use.
Well, exactly, I fully agree. Or in mine, if you look at this one, I had them totally scratched out as a CU. A gas station? We're going to put a gas station in the middle of a pole barn park?
Yeah, I mean.
That
just-
doesn't make any sense. That shouldn't even be an option.
I mean, just leave it blank or.
Right, leave it blank, not let it happen. A hotel? Are you kidding me? I mean, yes, that's something that they have to go through. But anyways, I digress off my soapbox. That is the first change, first definition, or first recommendation is that council look at this in both limited commercial and in both mixed use of getting rid of the conditional use and going to a performance standard. Is there any consensus here to move away from the conditional use and going strictly to a performance standard under limited industrial or light industrial and a mixed use district?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, I mean, we've heard what the possible problems are with having it permitted without a conditional use.
Yep.
What are the disadvantages to having conditional use?
What are the disadvantages to
Yes.
not having a?
To requiring a conditional use permit.
Well, you're adding another meeting, granted, it's a minimal fee of $750, but whatever. I just don't think any of these conditional uses apply to a pole barn.
I just feel like, I mean, from my perspective, I feel like it's undue, unnecessary work for planning and zoning.
That's exactly what I've thought. Why are we going to put our planning and zoning through additional meetings if we can come out with a performance standard? Possible conditions of findings could be existing ice ridge to remain in as with no modifications except as currently allowed by the city of Cross Lake. That doesn't even apply to what we're doing here, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these are just outlandish.
And David, you said there's no going back if we, if we don't, I mean, why is there no going back? I mean, if we saw, okay, this is actually becoming a problem.
You can go back.
Could we go back?
Yes.
Well, you probably can do anything, but my point was, if you have a conditional use that you've agreed to, discuss, people propose, and then it's approved, then if it's not the way people agreed to, then the conditional use can be rescinded. If we don't have one, it's a little bit tougher, I think, than if you do. You'd have to change the ordinance, and then you'd have to consider whether previously approved things are now legal or illegal, or you have to go through the process of a fine and a letter, et cetera. I just think a little bit more review on the front end protects you on the back end. And as it relates to the gas station example, I agree with you, but I would say let's use the logic the other way around. I would say a gas station darn well ought to have a conditional use permit.
Oh, I fully agree with you.
So let's change that.
I fully agree with you.
And so on the issue of noise, if a personal storage place, is loud because the Vikings finally win the Super Bowl or something, I mean, there might be some noise issues as it relates to the adjacent property. And so that's why I was saying a fence, some pine trees, something that is screening that, yes, it's true, Paul can make some comments about screening as it relates to a over-the-counter PP, but if he says no, or I have a concern, then it puts it it comes before us anyway, and it's the potential for inconsistency. So it's kind of like you pay your money or take your chance. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to be more allowing and put some of those decisions on Paul and risk the inconsistency of how two proposals are handled? Or do you want to say, oh, at least in the short term, let's have it go through planning and zoning, and if everything's fine and we don't have any issues, then we can change it to a PP. That's all I'm asking for.
And my fear on the flip side of Mr. Fuse's point is you're going to tell one pole barn they have to screen this way with a conditional use, and now you're going to tell another pole barn they have to screen a different way with a conditional use. That's not fair. If you come up with a performance standard, everyone has to screen this way. Everybody has to do this. It's fair across the table.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we did a really good job of having some pretty, exact
I thought so, too.
performance standards. I feel at a disadvantage because I haven't had the opportunity to read through all this, so there might be some that are really valid, so.
In Paul and Cheryl's defense, I will go out and say, yes, these land use tables need to be cleaned up severely, the whole thing, from limited commercial, downtown commercial, the whole deal. Paul and Cheryl simply had copy and pasted this to get us going, so I do give them that olive branch and recognize that. So these do need to be polished up. Back to the conversation of a conditional use, I just
I
kind
have
of
a
want to
question.
start getting consensus. Robin, do you have any comments or concerns?
I do, I have a question. So this document that we received from Lori,
Yep. So that document that you have received from Lori right in front of you was the alternate of what we had came up with in the meeting. On Wednesday, so that was Friday's meeting.
yep,
On Wednesday, I sat down with Paul and Cheryl and myself right at this dais, and we went through that to see how it equated into the existing ordinance. Everything in that is in this already.
so is part of the checklist for a storage building, because I'm seeing on top of here, a mixed-use zone to allow personal storage and living quarters in these zones.
That has been changed into this updated deal.
So my point would be that if a storage building becomes more than a storage building, can it then require a CU? a simple storage unit, I would say no. What is the criteria around a storage unit that would elevate it to needing a CU?
So that is why, Robin, we had flipped back. If you flip all the way to the back page, or sorry, now it's changed, second to last page, that is where that entertainment space comes into play, of us coming up with the definition of an entertainment space. Once again, these are not going to be used for long-term living. We have left that in red. Not intended for the use of dwelling units. That is not changed. That has stayed the same. So the entertainment space is in blue, and it is an area within a personal storage building that is meant for recreational use, but not to be used for a single-family dwelling, multifamily dwelling, two-family dwelling, or in general, any dwelling unit or units. No long or short-term living / rental is allowed. So that is encompassing everything that we've been talking about by allowing a recreational space, crash pad, whatever you name it, but also while addressing the fact that no long-term living or definitive bedrooms or whatever is allowed.
So is it classified as a personal storage or a residential? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Personal storage.
Okay.
Unless you have, I mean, if you have a concern, please.
Well, I just want to make sure that our staff are equipped to be successful in launching our builders and our developers through this process quickly. And make sure that at checkpoints of their development that they don't have to, we have to go back for CU, or I just want to make it clear to the person doing the permit that they know what they're going to be up against.
Yep, no, I hear you loud and clear.
And from a staff perspective, is there additional information you all need, or you would oversight differently if it wasn't classified as a storage unit, rather a residential unit?
Well, we can't classify anything as a residential unit in here because it's strictly mixed use and industrial. So everything is staying industrial, everything is staying mixed use. Nothing will ever get rezoned to residential.
And can we just reiterate that this is just for a very specific,
These are for 3 people. 3 people, just a development, that's it. This isn't for citywide or anybody else. This is just to get the hiccup along down the road.
Can I ask staff if they have any concerns?
Oh, yeah, you can ask, sorry.
No, I mean, not at this time. The biggest fear is this is a new use to us. And so I know David has made the comment plenty of times in my planning commission. It's a brand-new use, and not only a new use to the city of Cross Lake, but a new use that we can't go out and research in a lot of other communities. And so it is, a CU was hey, for the short term, let's go with conditional use so we can effectively see how these play out, see if there are conditions that come up that we're unaware of, and then maybe long-term, we can narrow it in on an ordinance. But that was one of the biggest reasons was, there's maybe a lot of unknown. And I know we're just saying, well, it's a pole shed, but again, it comes down to the use, and there's a lot of unknowns with this use.
Jackson, I have one more point.
One more point, go ahead.
Piggybacking.
Go ahead.
So, look, I'll say, look, we're close here, and we're having a conversation, and I think we're getting to a point where we're gonna have consensus. Let me just tell you this. If you do the PP, it goes to Paul, and something raises his concern as it relates to something he can approve over the counter.
Yeah.
If that is the case, he can say, no, I'm going to require a DRT or the planning and zoning to review it. That's within his purview. Am I stating that correctly? So if that happens, and I'm not saying it will or it won't, then the whole issue of timing is delayed and the cost of a permit exists. So do you want to take the chance of going that route and having some get kicked back, slowed down in an unpredictable way? Or do you want to say, at least initially, let's have a conditional use permit, you get it, we talk about it, it's approved, done. That's, to me, more logical progression of decision-making.
And
So I'll leave you there.
No, I hear you loud and clear, and I appreciate all the time and effort that you have put in as chair in doing this. It's just, I guess maybe I'm naive, but I just can't, I don't know what issues would come up. What,
I mean, you've just raised the, an alternative, action that actually does take care of a possible issue. I mean, it puts the onus on Paul, but having a conditional use permit also puts the onus on Paul or on the commission, right?
right, but if you can't see you can't see you cherry pick. It's either all or nothing. It's just,
No, but according to
I'm-
David, I wasn't aware that that was a possibility that you could.
What?
Well, that he could call, was it a DRT?
a DRT meeting.
Right.
That's,
If there's issues.
Yeah.
It's in my purview to say, no, you need a conditional use, not a performance-based.
Right.
But I will say that that puts me in a really tough spot.
And you
And I
have
under-
already been put in a tough.
I
spot.
understand it puts you in a tough spot, Paul, but that's why we're paying you to do that job.
Yeah.
We need you to do that.
Yeah.
That is, not everything I don't think needs to be an ordinance, but we'll go from there. Go ahead, Bob.
First of all, if the Vikings ever win the Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot more noise problems in this town than just its personal storage buildings.
Exactly. Go ahead.
But seriously, I agree with, I think, the direction the council is going, that, when you go down and look at these developments, what's been done so far, they look fantastic, better than some of the other developments that we've had in town.
Yes.
And I trust the people that are involved in these projects to keep them nice.
Right.
I think we have some very specific guidelines in here for the screening.
Yeah.
I just don't see the additional need for a CU that's going to probably delay construction, add cost for the people that want to buy the buildings.
Yeah.
I think we're
No,
good.
I hear you. So since we're starting to go down that direction, let's just go back and we're just gonna go down the line. Page 4, very bottom, storage buildings / personal under light industrial and mixed use. Sandy, what's your consensus of moving to a CU?
I think.
Or sorry, moving to a performance standard?
I think as long as Paul has the option to, if a red flag is raised, and then I think it just makes it a more seamless,
Okay.
process.
Jamie?
I agree with Sandy.
And we all know where I'm at. Bob?
You know where I'm at too.
Robin?
I agree.
Okay. Do you have a comment, concern?
Just one quick.
Up to the, please.
Dan Miller, 37839 County Road 66. So I think that you guys have done a really good job of putting together an architectural standard on this. If people follow that model, I think they're good to go. I don't know why you would lay the problem back on Paul if he
Right.
sees something. He's one man in this city, and as long as he follows that ordinance, it's pretty tight. The other thing I want to point out is on a 20,000-foot lot, and I think that's fine in this district that we're doing, if you've got a setback on the front, you've got a road setback, and you've got two 10-foot setbacks on the side, or let's say you've got one residential setback on the side,
Yeah,
the setbacks alone on those lots have increased quite a bit. You're taking 1/2 of the property just for setback. And remember that the people next to these lots, even though they're cleared out to the lot line, they probably have some responsibility to screen also.
are you talking page 9?
I'm talking in general on this whole thing, how much property we're talking about for setbacks on these. It's considerable. I mean, if you have one residential lot next to you, by the time you get all the setbacks right, half the property is gone on setbacks on a 20,000-foot lot. And the other thing is, as far as Paul having the final say on this, we have a really good architectural standard. The thing is, it needs to be enforced. If it's
Yes.
enforced, I mean, you're putting him in a really bad spot, first of all. And you would be also putting it up to one man to make all those decisions.
Putting him in a bad place in what?
Yeah, so as far as interpreting
Right.
what he sees and whatnot, I think that ordinance is tight enough, and I think the architectural standard is tight enough, where if you can meet the standard, you get your
He's
permit.
just saying if we didn't do that
Yeah.
or have the standard.
And if we looked at the whole thing and Paul said, there's an eagle's nest 30 feet over on the neighbor's property, I'm concerned about it, and then he can throw a hook in the deal.
Yep. Point well taken.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, so there we are at the CUs. So as we flip through, we are back at page 9. Commercial/light industrial density and dimensional standards. In blue, there is a new proposed personal items to be stored outside will not be allowed without a 6-foot privacy fence. So this is up for debate, it's questioned. As the current ordinance states now, that we had already done the first reading on, it states that there is no outside storage no outside storage allowed whatsoever. After meeting with a few people that have pole barns in Mr. Agonaw's development, they have the lot, and then some of them have the additional lot next to them. The main lot has a pole barn on it, the lot next to them does not. They might have a few boat trailers, they might have a few old trucks or farm implements or something. I see both sides of the issue of saying, hey, why can't I just store this outside? You know, I'm not gonna have a farm implement take up space in my building, but I also see the fact of, you know, not everyone wants to see that. Not everybody wants to see farm implements all over. That is up for discussion.
In light industrial, if you have stuff outside, I don't see the issue.
I agree.
In the mixed use, given that we're doing, you know, what I'm gonna call, based on the conversations, high-end pole barn storages, whatever you wanna call them. I think the reason for the fence was more because there might be a picnic table, some stuff out back or on the side where people
Okay.
might grow something. So just to hide that from your neighbors from the back or from the side, I think that was the spirit behind the fence. I don't think it was meant to have 3 trailers and a boat, so you, 'cause
Right.
a 6-foot fence ain't gonna hide them.
No,
But
not at all.
I think that's what the spirit of that was for. I don't see that as a necessity in light industrial. If you're in light industrial and you have something outside, you're in an industrial area, I mean, the whole thing is
Right, fair game.
mixed use. You know, the planning and zoning's argument was, if they wanna store stuff outside, why do they have a personal storage building?
Right.
But I think
That-
it was more, it wasn't because they're gonna have a trailer or a boat or a car sitting out there, it was because they're gonna have a picnic table, a grill, you know, maybe a
Yeah.
whatever.
Go ahead, Bob.
I mean, I've been kind of won over about this in the past few weeks here since it's been discussed, but if somebody has collector cars in their building, they might have a car hauler.
Yeah,
Now, why wouldn't you back that car hauler behind the 6-foot fence,
right.
your trailer,
Yeah,
instead of just
right.
not having one or finding another place for it? So
Right.
I think that's just one example.
Right.
And, you know, you can go past any number of houses here and see a farm implement next to the house in residential, so.
Exactly. No, I hear you. I hear you. This is just, like I said, point of discussion, conversation. Robin?
I'm really indifferent on the fence.
Okay. Sandy?
Yeah, I mean, how do you know, distinguish between like a bunch of junk, you know, as
Right.
opposed to something that you're, you know, that's essential? So, I
Right.
mean, I don't know, how do you?
And then, Jamie, I really do like your point of the industrial, you know, it's industrial. Come on, you know what I mean? Like, that's fair game down there, I feel. Let's talk about that first, because that's a separate,
Yep.
that'll be a separate deal. Robin, what's your thoughts on a fence in industrial down?
No fence in
No?
industrial
Okay.
area.
Bob?
No, I think it's fine without a fence.
I agree without a fence. Jamie?
I say no fence.
Sandy, no fence? Okay. Paul, can you mark that, please? We will.
Mr. Egan, if I may ask you a question, do you have any storage buildings with any fences out there?
No,
Okay, I didn't think so.
forever, it was allowed to park anything outside in an industrial zone.
Right.
Right.
There we go.
And we used it to keep the city clean. I had people come to me that have lake places, and they said, my neighbor's complaining because I got this thing sitting outside. Can I park it down here? And I always say yes.
Okay.
It is the place for that stuff.
Thank you, Dean.
The bottom line is, I mean, the mixed use and industrial, I mean, it's not like you have neighbors.
Right.
I mean,
No one living next to you. Go ahead, Mr. Fuse.
So if I understand you correctly, in the light industrial, you'd
No fence.
want to allow people to store anything outside?
Correct.
No fence?
Correct. And then I was just gonna roll into mixed use, but I wanted you to talk first.
No, that's fine. I wanted to understand what
Okay.
you were saying, and that's
Okay.
clear. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I understand.
Okay.
As it
Thank you.
relates to mixed use, I think the thing that
That-
we were troubled with at the meeting was the thing that was scratched was outside storage is prohibited. And so, for example, in commercial, we've said you can't store stuff outside.
Yep.
You know, if you sell boats, you can have boats outside, or if you sell lifts, you can have lifts outside. And I believe that in commercial, we're still largely adhering to that.
Yes.
Even here in mixed use, it still sort of begs the question a little bit. You've got a storage building, but you want to be able to store stuff outside.
So that's where I'm just gonna start going down the line and talking about that here.
Okay, so as you do, let me just raise a couple of points. I mean, the point, or the suggestion here that you can have a privacy fence of 6 feet in height. What if, you know, how big, how long, how far? You know, what's it made of? What if it is no longer a fence, it's a tipped over fence? I mean, and what if the thing you're storing behind there isn't a picnic table, it's a camper that's 8 foot tall? Or
Right.
an end loader that's, you know, higher? So
Yep.
the question I sort of had is, where does that stop? And could it be junk versus personal items?
Yes.
And so I would sort of advocate for, no, let's not do that. However, if somebody wants to have a grill, and you don't want to put a grill inside a building after you've just used it, fire safety stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a scenario where somebody might want a personal fence to screen things from the neighbor's place. And I guess the question I have is, there's a provision for fencing that you can ask for a privacy fence. Is that an over-the-counter thing as a general rule? A fence, a privacy fence? In other words, if someone wants to put one up, they can, they just get a permit?
Yeah, and honestly, if it's back 5 feet from the property line, we don't even require a permit, only if you want to put that fence right on the property line.
So they can already build a privacy fence. The question what it boils down to is allowing a 6-foot fence seems arbitrary, and the contradiction of you've got a storage building, why are people
Yes.
storing stuff outside?
Yes.
Those are the two
Yes,
questions.
point well taken.
And Jackson,
Go ahead.
I just want to read something into the record just to give you guys more information. This is from the Planning Commission. For the recommended changes brought to the city staff in regards to changes to the land use table, referring to the PP versus CUP, and changes to the district standards in the land use ordinance, so what we're talking about right now on outside storage, the Planning Commission does not recommend these to be changed with a 3-2 vote on 3/28/25, so it happened on Friday. And then just to jump forward a little bit, for the recommended changes to the definitions in the land use ordinance, so adding entertainment space to the Planning Commission does recommend this to the City Council with a 3-2 vote on 3/28/25.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Miller, do you think Jared, I know you're out of it now, but do you think Jared's development has any intended use for outside personal storage?
So I think they've got covenants.
Sorry.
I think that they have covenants that prohibits more than so many units outside. They want to keep things
Orderly
they'll
and
have-
clean.
They'll have an architectural standard that exceeds the city's also.
Okay.
So, and they're not looking, they want more of a high-end neighborhood back there
Yep.
of storage buildings and whatnot. They're not chasing residential, of course, otherwise they would have asked to rezone it.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I don't think you're gonna see much for outside storage there.
Okay. Point well taken. I wish Jeff was here today so we could hear what his plans were for back there.
And I can't.
I know
speak
you
to
can't
that.
speak on his behalf, but point well taken. Okay, so we'll start at the other end again. Robin, what do you think about this part for mixed use, for a fence and mixed use?
On number 4 there,
Number 3
oh, okay.
in blue.
Yep. So what came to mind is personal items to be stored outside, I'm okay with that. Will not be allowed without a 6-foot privacy fence. I would say adjacent to residential property.
Okay.
That way, the mixed use stays mixed use, and I don't care, they can duke it out as neighbors, but if you have a residential home behind you, let's take care of them.
I agree. I agree. Bob?
I'm okay with the fence.
Right here. There you
I
go.
would like to see it be a maintenance-free fence.
I would,
I think maybe possibly limit it to the length of the building and maybe 12 feet wide,
so maintenance-free fence / length.
just to prevent it from getting too carried away.
Yeah.
And again, I bring up the example of, I have a car hauler trailer at home next to my house, and nobody cares about it.
Right.
So if I put it here behind a fence, isn't
Right.
that better than having it next to your house?
Right. Right, I hear it. Robin, what do you think of that change? Or is yours more just questioning?
I'm just on the aesthetics between the
Yes.
residential and the mixed-use
So
property.
that's where I'm getting to. Are you maybe suggesting that be a screening between?
Yep.
So you're wanting it just as a
Make it look nice, just be a property line.
storage or no storage outside? You just think it should be a screening,
Yeah.
right?
For residential respect.
But we already had, no, is that already in the?
That's where I'm trying to boil down to of
If it's
what-
already in the landscaping,
Yeah.
so be it, but I don't know if it was
Is it clear?
clear enough. I don't know.
Is it clear? Paul, can you please
As far as
weigh in here? Screening between residential and mixed use, Ms. Sylvester is recommending,
have specified between residential and, what was commercial, for the light commercial. I mean, we just have a standard screening, but we don't have specifics that talk about between residential.
because I do like her point of screening it off between the two, and I also heed Mr. Miller's recommendation is both parties do have a
Responsible.
responsibility. It's not just one or the other. What is your recommendation? What is your thoughts?
I agree in the fact that both may have the responsibility. I mean, if you bought next to a limited commercial, you should be aware that that land can be developed. However, the developers, I mean, I think it should fall mostly on whoever coming in to develop. It should be mostly on them,
I agree.
on their property. They're the ones bringing in the development, the structure. It'd be one thing if, I mean, the resident can also, add more trees if they should like. But how do you retroactively go back to the homeowner and say, you need to plant X amount of trees because so-and-so killed me next to you?
You can't.
You can't.
Right.
So you have to put it on the developer.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Doesn't section 26-738 screening, number 1, screening from residential areas shall be in addition to normal landscaping and planting by one or more of the following? A, B, C, or D. D being construction of architectural wall or fence.
Can you repeat the section again?
26-738.
Page.
Oh, page 12 on ours.
One D, or just all of one, basically?
Just all of them. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think there's two different things we're
Right.
talking about. We're talking about a privacy fence if somebody throws a trailer or throws whatever, and screening is different, but according to this, screening is already required, so if screening is required, whatever they put in there is gonna be blocked.
Right.
But, I mean, a fence is an unobscured thing, whereas if you put trees and bushes, a couple years later, you're still gonna see through it, but,
Right, right.
so I don't know if that answers or if that solves that issue or not, but that's,
I see Ms. Sylvester's point. Go ahead, Mr. Fuse.
Well, but I mean, maybe we need to add construction of architectural walls or maintenance-free fences. Because this says fences on D, 1D, under 26-738.
Because I believe the screening is very important.
Right. But I mean, because Bob mentioned the fact that, they should be maintenance-free because if they put up a fence and then it rots or falls down or whatever, then it.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yep, just a couple things. I'll be brief here. So, quick question. If somebody wanted to have a salvage yard, Paul, you know, junk stuff, or cars that are no longer drivable but for parts, is that a business that would not be allowed here? Or could somebody conceivably say, you know, I'm going to buy a bunch of Teslas and put them there because I know they're going to need parts?
I'm fairly certain salvage yard is in the industrial only.
I was gonna say, go see Dean.
Okay, all right. So, but then on the question of in mixed-use standards here, so the question is, how much stuff? How much personal stuff? Is it one boat? Is it two? Is it one car? Is it two? Is it three? What stuff is personal and what stuff is junk? Couple of questions for you to wrestle with.
I don't think we can necessarily go into the weeds on that and say you can have 2 boats and 1 bus and 14 cars.
Is there an ordinance in residential zoning?
Yes, that you have to have at least licensed and tabbed.
Yeah, drivable, 2 weeks, that kind of thing.
Putting it in a 12-foot wide area, the length of the building, you're limited to what?
12 feet, right.
To eliminate the issue of what qualifies and kicks you into having to have a fence, why wouldn't we consider just moving it right to screening? Say any personal storage unit that's adjacent to residential property will have a 6-foot fence. Lot line,
That's
lot
what
line.
that's what I am understanding that's what I'm understanding your motion, or not your motion, but your thought process to be is if you're gonna back up to any residential lot and you have a mixed-use lot, you have to put a fence as a screening tactic.
Yeah, then let's not worry about what they store there, because it's already taken care of by the privacy fence, and you're respecting the residential property next to it.
Jamie, what's your thought on that?
The only residential that this, either, Jeff's doesn't next to any residential.
You do.
Jared's does, but it would only be, it's,
Maybe on the back.
it's just on those,
Be a cricket strip on the back of the property. My only thought is, if somebody asked me whether I wanted to look at trees instead of a fence, I'm gonna wanna look at the trees instead of the fence. I mean, if you wanna do outside storage, and you wanna say, if you have outside storage, you gotta put the fence in, I think that's a good call, but I'd much rather look at nice
he's already
trees
doing
instead of a
screening, we
fence.
talked about that.
Yeah,
We know there's
and
gonna
they've
be
gotta,
screening
they've
back
gotta
there.
do the screening, they've already agreed to screening behind the assisted living.
Right.
And they've already agreed to put trees up on that whole thoroughfare. I just, if I'm gonna look at trees or a fence, I wanna look at the trees instead of the fence, I guess.
So back to boiling it down, what's your thoughts on that? On just regular screening with trees, they could decide to do a fence if they want, whatever. They have to screen regardless, but if they want to do outside storage, they have to add a fence.
I would say yes.
Okay. Sandy?
Well, I mean, if the natural screening is sufficient, I mean, or are we just talking about in the mixed use?
Just
If it
mixed
borders
use,
a res-
just
if it-
mixed use
if it
that,
borders a residential.
that borders a residential.
I mean, I'm fine if you want to require, if they have outdoor storage or things stored outside to require a fence. But I think, along with Bob, it has to be maintenance-free.
Bob, still?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Mr. Miller explained, whether you have trees, I think a lot of us would prefer that.
Yep.
But when you're gonna have things next to your building, and I think, I like the way I described it, where you limit the size of.
Yeah,
what
I
you're gonna
think,
have.
I really support your size to just limit it alongside the building or the back or the side, not,
And then 12 feet wide.
right, 12 feet from the building. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's fine. If there's tree screening, a fence, they're going to be looking at the trees instead of the fence anyway, so what difference does it make? So, I mean, if for some extra protection.
Yep. Jamie?
Are we still talking about commercial light industrial? We moved on
Nope,
to mixed use.
we're still just mixed use only. Mixed use only.
So,
Dean is out scot-free without fencing because it's industrial. So now we're talking about Jared and Jeff McGrath.
okay, then I think it's a moot point. I think if we put this in there or we don't have it, I honestly don't think they're gonna have stuff sitting outside, but I'm okay with having a fence if there's personal items outside.
Okay, and then you're okay with the 12-foot deal, 12 foot from the building? Robin, 12 foot from the building?
It's not 12-foot wide limitation, right? Just 12 foot from the building.
No, 12
12 feet from the
Yeah.
building, so 12 feet wide.
Yep, so it has a walkway. That's fine.
Okay, I agree to that too. So, under mixed use, let's make sure we put MU 12 foot from,
Is the 12 foot for a fire lane, is that where that comes from?
12 foot, just 12 feet from the building to put if you're doing outside storage. 12 feet from the building requires maintenance-free.
If you have a trailer, like I'm talking about, that's gonna be about 8 feet wide, 8 feet 6 inches at the most, and then it just gives you a little bit of room on either side of it.
12 foot from building requires maintenance-free fence for outside storage.
Mr. Galloway, is that correct? You haul a lot of cars around. Is 12 feet wide enough?
All right, sounds like there's council consensus.
For staff purposes, can we just cross off personal and just say items to be stored outside?
Sure,
Yeah,
Because personal,
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
it can be farming.
good point,
Yeah,
Cheryl.
no, thank you. Okay, so we've figured out 3. 3 is done. Now we're down to 4. The hookup of a septic system and well is permissible for an established business use along with a personal storage building. I think we have all agreed to that, correct?
I would just, sorry, change instead of along with, and/or.
So you want and/or instead of along with?
It's either business use and/or with personal storage building.
And/or is fine with me.
Yep.
And/or okay with you, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, so along with is out and/or is in. Okay, structure lot line setbacks for commercial, 10 feet. What was that before, Paul? What was, the 10 is in red, what was it before?
I believe it was 5.
5?
Let me double check.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
The fire department wanted it wider.
As I say, the fire department wanted the
It's
10,
5,
correct? And Chip wanted the 10, is that my understanding? Okay, I'm okay with 10. Robin? Bob?
Yes.
Sandy? Jamie? Okay, everyone's good with 10. So now we're going down to the mixed-use standards. All of this stuff you have seen in red already. Once again, there is blue, so personal items to be stored outside. That just reverts back to what we just talked about. The maintenance-free fence with the 12-foot whatever. Number 5, hookup of a septic system. That is going to cross out use along and do and/or with a personal storage building. Let's take a look at these lot widths here. 20,000 feet for the square footage, minimum lot width of 100. Structure lot line from residential setback is 30 feet. Structure lot line from commercial is 10. Public right-of-way frontage is 100. Setbacks between buildings is 10. City street right-of-way is 35. County road right-of-way is 35, and the max impervious is 50%. How does that look to everybody? Dan?
I think that looks pretty good.
Hey.
I think off the residential side, 30 feet, it's more than it used to be, but I think it's acceptable for sure.
Okay. Bob?
I just have a question on the public right-of-way frontage where it says 100 feet. Now, when we get into some of these cul-de-sacs where you have pie-shaped lots, how does that impact that?
Paul?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, and some of these places where we have a cul-de-sac or a curve, some of those lots are pie-shaped. You might only have 35 or 40 feet at the front, not 100. It might be 200 feet at the back, but they're a pie-shaped lot.
Or they're a flag lot where they come in and go out.
Yeah, I mean, we do have an ordinance on flag lots or similar to that. We don't have very many cul-de-sacs on this, and we usually go by how our right-of-ways are taken off of our GIS.
Not even down in Jeff McGrath's development?
That one yeah, I mean, we do have cul-de-sacs.
And I thought on Jared's development, aren't there some lots that are kind of pie-shaped in the corners where there's curves?
Yeah, so usually how we do it, if it was resident, I'm
Sorry, no, it's okay. I just,
usually how we do it, it'd be just standard building is, you'd still need to be back to 35 feet from the road.
Correct.
You have to have so many feet, you have to meet a minimum lot width at some point on that, and still be able to keep your setbacks.
Right.
So the height-
But it says 100 feet. That's my
There
concern.
probably needs some modification.
I mean, a pie-shaped is going to force you to kind of be set back anyways, based on side yard restrictions and,
so this 100 is not set in stone, in other words. There's some wiggle room if it comes to a pie shape or something, correct?
I mean, we do have to go by our ordinance, but
So if it's not 100 and you had just said, you know, there might be some wiggle room here, what should that be?
We didn't change it. This is what commercial was, this is what light industrial is.
yeah.
I know it hasn't been
Right.
changed, but still, if we're making changes, now's the time to
Right.
look at it.
Clean it up,
Exactly.
sure.
Would it just be them coming asking for a variance?
I don't think you'd need a variance for it. Most of the time, what we would do is we would, once you hit 100 feet in width on the lot, Jamie, that would be where you would be building. So you'd have to move out of the pie, and
Oh,
you'd either have
oh, I
to
see.
move,
Okay.
you'd either have to move back
You
35
just keep
feet out of
going.
the easement,
You might have to go back
and,
another,
yep.
okay, that
Yep,
makes
and
sense.
typically, and otherwise, what you could do is you can just keep the setback off the main road, which is 35 feet.
building envelope.
And
I know.
if you can still keep your setbacks off the sideline, you can build in that area. But most of the time, everybody pushes back to the 100 feet because
Okay,
they
that
want
makes
something
sense.
for a
I
yard
So
up
even
front.
though it says 100 feet, but we're still talking about public right-of-way right at the front,
Yeah.
can you?
I mean, that 100 feet from public right-of-way, I mean,
Probably
it's
be a
almost-
good idea to clean that one up.
it's
That's what
almost
I'm saying,
never
yeah.
even looked at.
Okay,
We
so
go-
let's
yeah, we go
circle
off
that
of-
and.
We go off either the city or the county road right-of-way
So
setback.
can we trash that out?
Residents have 50.
Or do we just change it to 50?
Then 50.
Same as limited commercial
Okay.
district.
So 100 to 50. Sandy, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
What does light industrial have?
So then that also goes for anything in this packet where it says public right-of-way frontage 100, change it to 50 so it's contiguous. So even above where it says, you know, at the top of the page, public right-of-way frontage 100, change that to 50 as well. So everything matches.
So for Dean's 50.
Yep, so for Dean's 50, for Jeff's 50, for commercial 50, 50, 50, 50.
You know what? I'm unclear on it, so I'm gonna ask a few questions. So for that division that Jared's got back there, they've got some corner lots that probably have like 20 or 30 feet on the road. How does that work? Because they're already established.
That's what he's trying to get to.
That's when you were saying 50 on the front, those lots would be illegal automatically. They'd be an existing or a non-conforming conformity, but I still think you probably need to verbiage that in the way that you have to
50
move
when
back.
possible?
I think we just
Yeah.
need to trash it and Paul needs to figure out something and we can add it back in.
Yeah, I would,
Maybe make the lot buildable after you get back 30 feet off the right-of-way, as long as you can meet your sideline setbacks, or something like that. Or call out a standard just for cul-de-sacs or inside corners.
Paul, what's your thought on that? Cheryl, if you need to tag in here for help, come on up.
It's been 50, we haven't had any problems with anybody else. I mean, if you got 50, you need 10 from each side, you need to have the driveway itself, you need to be able to have a ditch so that you can put the snow, you know. maybe-
But that
talking
still
about-
doesn't address the 20, 30 feet at the front of the lot.
he's talking 20 or 30 feet, not 50.
On the inside corner, Cheryl, of the lot, when you make the turn in, the lot's usually pie this way. On the outside corners, you have 250 feet. On the inside corners, you usually have 20.
And so I'm saying, when you pie in, you gotta put a driveway, right? You gotta get in there. I mean, isn't that what the cul-de-sac for, is access?
So in other words, you guys are telling
I'm
me,
saying you got a 10 or 12 foot wide driveway, you got 10 on each side, so that's already.
so you're telling me this is a
And then
mute
you
point?
ditch.
This is a mute point, correct? This is fine, he's gonna get away with his 30 feet and he's gonna build, correct?
Well, as far as I know, he has that addressed already with an engineer.
But when it comes to city ordinance,
This is what the ordinance says.
But when it comes to city ordinance, at the front of the public right-of-way, of the front of the road, it
Yeah.
says 100 feet.
Yeah, and this would, I mean, this would be for mixed-use district standards moving forward, so the next,
Commercial is 50.
yeah, he's already got his platted.
Oh,
So he's
true.
fine.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So it's-
Then leave it to 100, I guess, or just leave it to 50. Leave it to 50.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Dean, come on up, please.
He's up here.
You're fine, you're fine. I know you're having trouble walking.
forever, it was in the ordinance that any lot that was subdivided had to have a minimum of 35 feet access to a public right-of-way. And that was a guarantee that everybody that buys a lot could get to a city road. That's
So,
what you're talking about. So if you want to change it to make cul-de-sacs work, you probably got to go down to 25 feet, and it won't matter. But it's good to have the right number in there, because in essence, Danny could come in for a permit, somebody in planning and zoning in the future could look at it and say, you don't have 50 feet right away.
That was my,
so as long as the lot width, the lot width somewhere in that building envelope is 100 feet, it's fine. We should make it reflect then the public right-of-way needs to be a minimum of 20, 35?
I'd say 25 feet. Yeah, but, you know, you can just address that on inside corners and cul-de-sacs.
His, Jared's is already platted, right?
Yeah,
His Jeff's already platted.
yeah.
So this is a moot point for those two. It doesn't matter what this
Well,
is.
I mean, to Dean's point, for somebody in the future getting a building permit, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it is already platted, they're gonna be established lots.
Right.
This is something that would be nice to get Public Works opinion on as far as access, ditch. I don't know if it needs to happen today, but
for now,
Then scratch it out of there,
Take it
please.
out of there for now.
Take it out.
until we come up with some
If it's
better
not right,
ideas.
it's not going in there.
So we're removing.
We're removing
right-of-way
public
frontage
right-of-way frontage totally for now,
From both?
from both. Scratch it both. Those two are platted, or all three of those guys are platted, so they'll still be able to build. But that can be fixed later on.
So then staff will have to deal with if somebody comes in for a 10-foot wide pie shape, we're gonna have to tell them, sorry, you can't get into your property, because you have to be 10 from this side, 10 from this side, that's 20 already, and then your driveway, depending on what you.
Cheryl, isn't that what we just asked and we were told that we were fine?
I already said that, I already said.
Then what's the issue
that
now?
50 feet was to get the tents from the sides, the width of the driveway, and also be able to store snow within that driveway, or, not driveway, sorry, road, driveway area.
Well, it's,
I mean, to me, at the minimum, I mean, 35, I mean, to give nothing, I just feel it's a disservice for somebody coming in, but you can.
okay, then we could put it to 35. I mean, it's just, you have over here, one saying they want the planning commission to do it, and you have you saying you want whatever.
50.
Well, now if we don't send it to the planning commission, I'm gonna get spanked because I didn't give the planning commission their time.
I'm just saying with residential, it seems to work well with 50.
Okay, well, you two
yeah,
can
I'm fine with 50 too.
You're fine with 50? But it still doesn't address the 35.
Right.
The 35 setback from the road right away?
No, the 35 corner.
What Mr. Miller was just talking about.
In
And
the
Dean.
cul-de-sac.
Right. So you just, instead of having your circle and doing 35, you do 50.
Oh, good lord.
So the existing lots, I don't know.
Oh, you're already in a plan, we're talking future here.
35.
This doesn't go back.
If we're gonna have something, recommend 30.
Okay, let's just put it to 35. I'm 35.
If-
35 for now, and it can go to planning and zoning and they can look at it.
Right.
So 35 feet for now, and planning and zoning will go look at it.
On both of them?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Moving forward.
So we're just looking at changes, right?
All land use permits for the mixed-use district and commercial district submitted, okay, that has nothing to do with anything. Does anybody want to address anything on screening while we're here? Did anyone want to make this any better, or are we content on where it's at? Because right now is our chance.
Well, let's be consistent, like on D, 1D,
What page?
12,
Okay,
construction of architectural walls or maintenance-free fences.
perfect. Maintenance-free fences is noted in 1D and will be reflected throughout the ordinance. Paul, did you get that?
Yep,
Okay,
maintenance-free and
thank you. Page 13 looks fine. Page 14 looks fine. Page 15. Glass on any front facade shall be a minimum of 5% with non-front facades consisting of a minimum of 2.5%. I don't think, if they don't want glass in there, they shouldn't need glass. I understand glass on the highway, I understand glass in the main corridor, but if they don't want glass inside when you're in this development, I don't feel like they should have to put glass. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Sandy?
I agree.
Bob?
Yeah, that's fine.
Robin?
I'm good.
Jamie?
I guess,
Okay, so glass is eliminated.
What's the reasoning that they don't want glass? Just asking.
Because it messes up with their putting in doors and the use of the 25% with the metal door and the garage doors making 2 or 1. It just throws the whole equation off.
There's another issue that they brought my attention to. So you buy this $100,000 collector car, and now you park it in the building and it sits there 99% of the time, and the ultraviolet comes through the glass, and it'll discolor the paint. I
Yep.
never realized that.
There's that too. So A is out, but I mean, you could always do curtains, but that's why A is out. But I hear your point, Dean. Everything else looks fine to me. Overhang, 24 inches, everyone was good with that. Page 16 is fine.
17.
Page 17A will be crossed out. Otherwise, everyone was fine with the architectural standards. Page 18.
Wait,
Go ahead.
you said
8A. Yep, 8A is
so you
out.
don't have the glass on
No.
in the mixed use either?
No,
I thought it was just in the industrial.
it's both. It's industrial and mixed use. So Jared will probably be putting in glass because he's
Yeah.
gonna have covenants. But I understand glass if you're on the main thoroughfare or if you're within that 400 feet corridor. I get of having glass. But if you don't want glass and you're only gonna cover it with a curtain because you don't want the rays on your vehicles or something,
Well, you have tinted glass.
or you could do tinted glass.
It's all right,
But,
it's all right.
I mean, I just,
If it was
whatever.
mine, I would want glass on there.
Well, then you'll throw glass in. You know what I mean?
yeah. And then, I
Go
guess
ahead.
just to comment, I mean, we also have to understand, we were talking about Dean, Jeff, and Jared, but they're all selling their lots. And so we gotta look at who's ever buying these lots and building too. We can't say Jeff is gonna build a building and we anticipate him building it to these standards.
Right.
All 3 developments, they're up for sale right now. And so
I mean, the individual lots.
the individual lots,
Right.
and so they're gonna go to the buyers. Now, they might be the ones ultimately building them too, I'm not saying that, but the buyer can ultimately put up what they want.
If the buyer wants glass, the buyer will
I'm
put
just
in
making a note
glass.
so you guys understand that.
Well, Jared has a covenant, right? Isn't
Yes.
he?
Yeah, I believe they've got covenants on their buildings.
So
I don't
they'll
a
have to
problem with
be-
Not having glass, but in that development, their plan is to have a little bit higher.
Yes, and if the buyer wants glass, they'll put in glass. And just, yeah, there we go. Article 4 here, amendments to chapter text, land use, boundaries, whatever. So planning and zoning had made a recommendation to get rid of that 30 days, and it's upon, that 30 days is now gone to an ordinance will be legal and be able to be acted on within its, or upon its publication to the official newspaper. I think I'm fine with that. Robin?
I'm fine with that.
Bob?
Yes.
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 Okay. Does anyone have any questions, council members have any questions on the entertainment space definition? This was the way to incorporate the crash pad mentality. This is how we're doing it. We're not calling it a crash pad anymore. It's not a studio apartment. It's not a whatever. It's an entertainment space.
I think that's a good description.
Bob?
I like it.
Jamie?
I'm good.
Robin?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm good with it too. So finally, storage building, personal, a structure used for the storage of belongings, equipment, or materials of a personal nature that is not intended for the use of dwelling units. I'm fine with that. Robin?
Yes?
Bob?
Yes.
Jamie?
I'm good.
Sandy?
Yes?
Okay, we went through that. So we polished that up. Is there any way, since there was minimal changes, we deleted glass and we put the public right-of-way frontage to 35, and we changed the CUs to PPs, is there any way city staff could put this and amend this quick in a document so we could do the first reading today as well? I want to have it cleaned up so we can do a first reading.
Well, can't this be considered the first reading?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it can be
I think what
considered.
you have in front of you could,
I just didn't know if it had to be changed before it was the first reading. So it
I
is,
mean, I guess we did make,
we made quite a few changes. What? It doesn't need to be changed
yeah,
first
with-
before the first.
with, yeah,
Okay.
with the first reading with the administrative changes.
Okay, I just didn't know if it needed to be changed first before we said it was a first reading.
Yeah, and what I'll do for the second reading is what I did on this one. What you see in green is the changes that were a part of the first reading, but the administrative changes that came after the fact.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so, since that was the first reading, no motion, correct? Okay. Perfect.
Let it be stated that the first reading.
Yeah, let it be stated that this was the first reading of the new proposed ordinance. And the second reading will be, we have to do, yeah, regular council meeting's fine. Oh, wait, hold on.
Enough time?
What's the difference? We can do it within how many days?
Is it
10?
Is it 10 business or 10, just total, 10 total days for ordinance?
I say, Dean, the 14th, you're okay with that, right? Instead of 10 days to the 14th? That's all we can do. So we'll do that second reading at the normal city council meeting. I just know that there's folks on unemployment and we need to get moving, but 14th will be noted.
We adjourn? I move to adjourn this meeting.
Any conversation? Seeing no further conversation, those who are in favor vote aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned at 3:15. 4:15, sorry.
Come on, let's get your act together.
Sorry.